Hi everyone, this is Miss Felice here to teach you about LCM and GCF. Let's start with GCF, which stands for the greatest common factor. The greatest common factor means what is the biggest factor that two numbers have in common. So the way we find the greatest common factors, first list out the factors of each number. So my factors of 12 are all the numbers that I can multiply together to equal 12. I like to make a chart to help myself. Well, I can multiply 1 times 12. Those are two factors of 12. I can multiply 2 times 6. And I can multiply 3 times 4. There are no other factors of 12. If I try to go up past 3, I'm at 4 again, which I already wrote down, so those are all my factors of 12. My factors of 18, of course I always start with 1 and the number. 1 times 18, those are factors. I can multiply 2 times 9. I can multiply 3 times 6. And that is it. There's nothing I can multiply 4 by. There's nothing I can multiply 5 by. And 6 I already have, so now I'm going to start going back down the list again. So to find the greatest common factor, I want to know what's the greatest factor that these two numbers have in common. Well, I see they both have a 2, but that's not the greatest factor in common. They both have a 3. That's also not the greatest factor they have in common, though. The greatest factor they have in common is 6. So the GCF of 12 and 18 is 6. Remember, factors are few. There's going to be a limited number of factors. You can't have infinite factors. There's only going to be a short list. LCM stands for least common multiple. Now, multiples are many. You can have infinite multiples, and there are infinite multiples for every single number. Multiples are almost like skip counting by that number. It's if you took this number in this problem, we're trying to find the least common multiple of, oh, that's wrong. The least common multiple of 6 and 8. First thing you should do is list out the first few multiples of 6 and 8. So it would be like if I took 6 and I multiplied it by 2, I would have 12. If I multiplied 6 times 3, I would have 18. If I multiplied 6 times 4, I would have 24. 6 times 5 would be 30. 6 times 6 would be 36. And we could probably stop there. I could keep going, though. I could keep going forever and ever and ever. 8. Well, 8 is our first multiple. 8 times 2 would be 16. That's our next multiple. 8 times 3 would be 24. 8 times 4 would be 32. 8 times 5 would be 40. And 8 times 6 would be 48. I could keep going. I could keep listing these on and on and on and on, but I already see what my least common multiple is going to be. Now, least common multiple, least means I want the smallest multiple. So the very first multiple I see that they have in common, it's not 12, not 16, not 18, but 24. They both have the multiple 24 in common. So that is my least common multiple. These numbers probably have other multiples in common. If I kept going with number 6, I already said 6 times 6 is 36. I could do 6 times 7 and get 42. 6 times 8 would be 48. And there it is. There's my next multiple. They have 48 in common. But again, that is not the least common multiple. The least common multiple is 24 because it's the smallest multiple that they have in common. So when do we use these things? Well, least common multiple should look a little familiar because you use that with fractions all the time. You know how to add and subtract fractions. When we do that, we need to have what we call a least common denominator. So when we create equal denominators, are using the least common multiple. I can't add these fractions yet, 2/3 plus 5/6, because they don't have the same denominator. But I know the least common multiple between 3 and 6 is 6. So I got to change these fractions so that they both have a denominator of 6. Well, 5/6 is already good. I'm just going to rewrite it down here for myself. But 2/3, I need to multiply this by 2. 3 times 2 will give me 6. Whatever I do to the denominator, I have to do to the numerator as well. So this fraction turns into 4/6, and now I can add them together. 5 plus 4 is 9, so my answer is 9/6. Or if I want to turn it into a mixed number, I could say that is 1 and 3/6, which is the same thing as 1 1/2, if I simplify. So this is something that you've already seen before in previous grades, but now we're extending it to the least common multiple. The other time that we use the least common multiple with fractions is when we compare fractions. I want to know which of these fractions is bigger, 4/10 or 5/6, and we are going to use an inequality symbol to compare them. Well, I can't compare fractions unless they have the same denominator, which means I need to use the least common multiple between 10 and 6. So I can rewrite these fractions with the same denominator. If you don't know what the least common multiple is, that is okay. Let's write it out. My multiples of 6 are 6, then we have 12, 18, 24, 30, 36. I'm counting by 6 years. Let's see if that's enough. I'm going to stop there for now, but if I need to do more, I can always do more. My multiples of 10 are 10, then 20, 30. Oh, there it is. My least common multiple, 30. So how do I turn 4/10 into a fraction with a denominator of 30? I multiply the top and bottom by 3. And how do I turn the fraction 5/6 into a fraction with a denominator of 30? Well, 6 times 5, I'm going to have to multiply it by 5 to get to 30. So when I rewrite these fractions, 3 times 4 is 12 over 30. And this fraction is going to be 25 over 30. And now I can compare them. Well, 12/30 versus 25/30. 12/30 is smaller. 25/30 is bigger, so I would write my symbol in this direction. And that is how you can use the least common multiple to compare fractions.